One, two, three.
3.
2, 3. 1,
Yeah, we're lagging.
2, 3. Well, I was just talking because I thought we were going to do it 3 times.
Oh, let's try it again. Ready?
Can you hear me?
1, 2,
1,
3.
2,
1,
3.
2.
1, 2, 3.
We're lagging. We're lagging.
No, I don't think we're lagging. I think we don't know how to count.
I'm gonna count to 3, and your mark gets set. Go. Ready? On your marks, get set. Go. 1.
1. It does. I don't think we're lagging. I just think we're idiots.
Welcome to Scary Mystery Surprise,
where we talk about scary things that surprised us around the internet.
I'm Edwin.
I'm Michelle. It's funny. I mean, I guess, I told you we were doing a haunted house. So it's funny to me that I did the Winchester house and now I'm doing another haunted house that I can actually vouch for that it's haunted.
I thought you were going to say that I can also ruin.
No, actually, I tried to ruin this one and I couldn't find any evidence. In fact, I only found more people having like weird stories about it. So, and the house I'm talking about is the Whaley house in Old Town San Diego.
San Diego! Ah, okay, I've seen it from the outside. I've only seen it from the outside.
If you're familiar, the Whaley house has been on maybe every haunted show ever in the U.S. I think they call it like the most haunted place in California. And you can also get a Groupon and go there for $14. So if you need to go there, it's only $14 with your Groupon in Old Town San Diego.
Not sponsored.
But I really did try to, like, I was doing like the Winchester deep dive on this one. And I was like, I didn't find any weird stories that were like, oh, this is fake. Like, oh, this is a thing. It's pretty interesting. So, and then plus,
do places have like stories that kill it normally? Like, because
I think like if it's a tourist location, I think there's like generally there might be something that kills it. Like you can find some sort of history that kills it a little bit, and it's just like, Winchester. People have done a lot of myth busting in there. Granted, Winchester, I'm a little like, yeah. Now there might be energy there because everybody believes it's haunted. It's not necessarily what they think it is, which I think is probably true with a lot of haunting.
With the Whaley house, though, that looks creepy.
People did die there. There's weird shit that happened there, and that I'll get into. But I want to start with my ghost story there because I actually had an experience there.
Oh, wow.
Which is very weird. The audience, I don't know if you guys have picked up on that I was like a photographer for 15 years. I always had a camera with me. Shocker. I had another career before podcasting. So anyway.
I used to work at Taco Bell.
I mean, I used to work at, in Celebrity Pizza. I don't know if I can say the restaurant without them suing me. But I've met a lot of celebrities because I worked at a pizza restaurant. And sometimes they wouldn't wash their hands in the back. Not the celebrities, the staff. So just FYI.
Oh. Uh-oh.
No one will ever know.
It's not like Taco Bell. It's no surprise.
Yeah, actually, Taco Bell, everybody washed their hands, but in Celebrity Pizza, nobody washes their hands.
Well, sorry, I'm just remembering the time where Taco Bell employees peed on lettuce, and it was on the news or whatever.
No!
It was something really disgusting.
Oh, that's so gross.
That's something really disgusting. I remember the drive-thru that day. They were like, don't pee on my lettuce.
So the audience may or may not know this, but I was a photographer and artist for about 15 years. So I always had a camera with me. And I was visiting with my friend, shout out Maggie Starr, who's an avid listener of the show and probably will be thrilled to have her name mentioned in the podcast.
Hi, Maggie.
We were exploring Old Town and decided to go to the Whaley house. And I think this was in 2008. We were there. So we went in. The docent who was working the front was dressed in period garb and gave us descriptions of every room. And you go upstairs and there's bedrooms that are blocked off by glass so you can look in, but you can't go into them. And I'm like snapping pictures of everything. And, you know, one room was clearly a little boy's room and the other was a little girl's room because there was like a doll on the bed. I like snap pictures of both. And you walk through the upstairs, there's like a room that was a theater and a courtroom, which is kind of weird. Like it's a weird blend of things, especially when you go upstairs, there's bedrooms, and then you go into this courtroom theater. Everyone
wants one of those in their house.
Yeah, it just like, and it makes me think of Night Court for some reason. It's like you just, like if you were, like if you lived there now, you'd just be like, oh, cool, let's go play Night Court, guys.
It's like you asked for it, but how many courtroom theaters does it have?
So the docent gave us the history of the room, and we went back downstairs, and, I was just taking pictures. And as we went back downstairs, my camera stopped working. And it's a digital camera, right? So they don't jam. And I wasn't out of battery, but the shutter wouldn't click down. Like the shutter on the top just wouldn't click down.
What?
I know. And it was so weird. And so I look at it, and the camera had scrolled back 20 images to that picture of the doll on the bed.
What?
And like it wouldn't take another picture, and it like just it's still very weird. I mean, like I like just to have it go back to the doll on the bed.
And you didn't do it on your own.
I knew how to use a camera. Like I prefaced this by saying I was a photographer, so I knew how to use a camera. I'm on vacation. I'm absentmindedly taking photos. I'm not scrolling and looking at them. I'm not hitting because like on a digital camera, you have to hit the button, scroll back, like on this camera, you had to scroll back manually to get to there. And I did not do that. And it couldn't have done it on its own. Like, that's like the weird thing either. It's like...
To the doll.
To the doll. It just scrolled back to the doll. I told the docent at the front door, and she was like, oh yeah, that happens all the time.
What?
Yeah, like they like have weird things happen with digital stuff all the time in that house. And I was just like, okay. Like that, it's like a really tame experience. It was weird.
What did the doll look like?
It was like just like kind of like a rag doll. It wasn't like a porcelain doll or anything. It was kind of like fabric doll on a bed.
Do you still have that picture?
No. And that's the thing that gets me, is that everybody's like, oh, digital's forever. Digital is not forever, guys. You lose the camera, you lose the chip, you lose the computer, you never see those photos. I have no idea where those photos are, like when and where 2008 photos are. Haunted enough that someone could just walk through and have an experience, like that's pretty haunted.
Agreed.
In 1857, Thomas Whaley began construction on his home where he and his wife Anna would raise their children. Like many other structures built in the 1800s, the house was the site of several other businesses, including a granary, a courthouse, a school, a general store, and San Diego's first commercial theater. 5 years before the home was built, Thomas Whaley witnessed a public execution, the hanging of a thief named James Yankee Jim Robinson on that property. The property that Thomas Whaley bought was originally San Diego's gallows for execution, and at one point it had also been a graveyard.
Is it weird that I'm excited about finding something like that?
But anyway, I just think it's funny that Thomas Whaley witnessed Yankee Jim's execution, because Yankee Jim went on to be possibly the first ghost of the house. According to the Los Angeles Herald, he murdered and robbed men specifically at the mining camps to take their gold. A jury ordered James hung by the neck for his larceny charges of stealing a boat. So he stole a boat. James delivered a farewell speech to the crowd who came to witness his hanging. James told the crowd he was a good man and had given the gold to the less fortunate. And then there's a quote from the Los Angeles Herald that says, he swung back and forth like a pendulum until he strangled to death. The gallows that hung Yankee Jim were constructed on a parcel of land that had once been a graveyard. That same parcel of land that Thomas Whaley was like, I've got to build all my businesses and my family home on this piece of property.
So, yep, that one.
That one there. I'm sure it was cheap.
A graveyard.
It just also probably cursed his family, too. Later, Lillian Whaley also pointed out that her father told her that Yankee Jim was hung where the location between the archway separating the parlor and the study is. So when you walk in to their house, her father could point out.
Imagine that. It's like here in this spot of my house.
This is where the gallows used to be.
I don't know why, but I thought the gallows were out in the yard, and then the house was
You'd think that, but no, he built the house on where he saw Yankee Jim 5 years earlier stop breathing because he was swinging like a pendulum and strangling to death. Because that just screams peaceful home. Maybe you're just so you don't believe in ghosts that you're just I'll just get cheap land. It's fine. Oh, also for paranormal nerds, the Whaley house sits on underground water source, which is said to magnify paranormal activities.
Yep, energies travel through water sources and through water to streams and rivers.
Yeah, so just FYI, I love that a graveyard was built on there, gallows for execution, and now a house, and it's built on just a natural magnifier for paranormal activity. So the house was actually haunted while the Whaleys lived there by Yankee Jim, they think. Thomas Whaley would hear footsteps that couldn't have been made by his dainty wife or young children, which I just thought was funny.
Dainty?
Dainty wife, her little teeny feet. He concluded that it was the spirit of Yankee Jim haunting the residence. And while living at the house, he had 3 children, and actually one of his children, Thomas Jr., died of scarlet fever at only 18 months old. So stuff isn't going great at this residence. You're just weird noises. Our child died. And then after Thomas Jr. died, less than a year later, Thomas Sr.'s general store burnt down by arson, and that was part of the house. In 1859, the family attempted to start over, and they moved to San Francisco. They kept the property, but they moved to San Francisco.
Living the life to the most...
Honestly, yeah.
The most expensive places in California. San Diego and San Francisco.
It's true. I mean, look, living the life back when everything was $5. So they moved to San Francisco. They had 3 more kids, George, Violet, Lillian. And then I wrote, I just can't imagine pooping out children like that.
Pooping out?
There's too many kids. I mean, that's 6 kids.
I think you needed them, for backups.
For the economy. And in 1868, the family decided to move back to San Diego after an earthquake in San Francisco. So they decided to move back to the old homestead and make a go of it again. And this is really random, but this is on the whaleyhouse.org website. Basically, the second they moved back, the Whaley House Theater was established in 1868 when a guy named Thomas Tanner, the leader, there's a lot of Thomases, so bear with me. This is a different Thomas. The leader of the Thomas Tanner troupe rented the upstairs from Thomas Whaley and set up the audience chamber. I think it's probably what you can still see today for weekly entertainments. His daughter, Soledad, was going to be his leading lady. Tanner and his company packed 150 people in for the first performance. And sadly, the curtain came down on the Tanner troupe too soon when Tanner dropped dead backstage after a performance one night, soon after its opening. All good signs that the house isn't cursed, right?
Okay, that place is cursed.
I mean, it's just weird. So anyway, that happened when they moved back, but years go by. Violet Whaley is an adult. She's a young woman. She marries a man named George. I kept saying it Bertolassi, but that is such an American, flat pronunciation.
Bertolassi?
Bertolassi. Bertolossi. George Bertolossi.
George Bertolossi.
Georgia Bertolozzi, an Italian, I think. She married George Bertolozzi. However, 2 weeks into the marriage, her new husband left her in the middle of the night, never to be heard from again.
What a curse.
It's a curse. It's a serious curse. She would later learn that Bertolozzi had been a con artist who only married her in hopes of acquiring a dowry. So, it's a huge fucking dick. Humiliated by the betrayal and the backlash it caused to her reputation, Violet sunk into a deep, deep depression. In 1885, Thomas Whaley found his daughter Violet lying in a pool of blood. She had shot herself with his handgun. She had borrowed the poem from Thomas Hood's book of prose, Bridge of Sighs, and she'd written the suicide note of, mad from life's history, swift to death's mystery, glad to be hurled anywhere, anywhere out of this world. After Violet's death, Thomas was like, let's not live here anymore. He moved everyone to a house in what is now downtown San Diego. So they stayed in town, but they didn't stay in the house.
So they knew at this point that the house is cursed.
I mean, also just the shock of Violet's death would be enough. Like, forget all the other weird shit that happened to the house. You wouldn't want to stay in that house. Thomas Whaley died in 1890. The remaining members of the family seemed to feel called back to the house after his death. So Frank Whaley and Anna and I think Lillian all moved back in to the house, the Whaley house, after Thomas died. Frank Whaley actually turned the house into a museum. He restored it and turned the house into a museum in 1912. It was like a tourist attraction. And then by 14, Anna Whaley, Frank Whaley had died in the residence of natural causes. So he made it into a museum and then passed away.
Why, after all the tragedy, why would you? Unless that guy just wants to make a business and start his museum.
Maybe, but like, why do you need to live there to do that? You know, like, you don't need to live there.
By this time, or were they still rich?
You know, at any time investing in real estate, I'm assuming they probably were fine. There's always money in the banana stand, you know? There's always...
I love that.
No, there was real money in the banana stand. There was real money. It was in the wallpaper. But anyway, on to the hauntings. Visitors have reported seeing a ghostly apparition of a woman in the hallway dressed in a white gown, staring mournfully out the window. Some people have reported feeling a sense of overwhelmed sadness in her presence. It really seems like the whole family still haunts the home. People have reported seeing a man in a top hat and frock coat silently observing them as they tour the house. Some people claim to hear voices echoing in the halls, even though no one is present. People can hear Yankee Jim's footsteps and feel a tightness in their throat when they walk across that threshold that I talked about earlier between the, those two rooms. People say they hear Thomas Jr., the baby. Of course, you hear a baby crying, of course. People see Violet's ghost wandering around. People smell Anna Whaley's perfume and Thomas Whaley's cigar smoke. But no one's ever felt like a menacing presence or anything evil in the house. It just seems like the family that haunts together stays together.
Oh, it sounded like so heartwarming and nice, and then just haunts together.
And that's the Whaley house. I might have said Wiley sometimes, but I really meant Whaley. So we'll just edit it. Whaley. 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 I just love that the Whaley family seems to still be together. They're all going through their own shit, but they're doing it together. And that's what's important as a family, I think.
So this episode turned out to be very family values, family...
I would go wholesome. I don't know.
Wholesome.
Wholesome, yeah. Wholesome. Once again, Anna pooped out a lot of children. It was a lot of children. But then again, 3 of them didn't make it past their parents. So I guess, that's...
50% success rate. Better than some colleges out there.
Anyway, what are we going to talk about next week, Edwin?
I don't know. I think it'll be a surprise.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.